Back. In this video we'll be talking about conditional formatting. Now conditional formatting is a way of highlighting and understanding data within a certain set of rules. And it's highly customizable, and it's something that I use a lot in my reporting suite. So let's dive right into it. So normally when we use it is we have a large data set like this, and we just want to sort through it and understand or filter certain things in a visual way. So here we have an inventory list with items, names, quantity, selling price, purchase price, value of stock, etc. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the conditional formatting tab, which is up in the home ribbon, and over here, conditional formatting. So all of the options that we're going to be talking about are in this drop down over here. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is highlight cell rules. Now, there's a number of default rules that we can use, which Excel allows us to quickly select, but we can also do our own custom rules down the bottom by saying more rules and insert our own formula. But let's just do some of the basic ones. So first of all, let's highlight everything greater than. So what I want to do is I want to visually highlight all cells which have a selling price over, say, $60. And that way I can immediately figure out which are the highest selling prices. So let's do that. So let's first of all select a range. So Control-Shift down, and then conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and then we're going to go greater than. Now this little dialog box will pop up over here, which it defaults to a value. We're going to change that to $60. So this is the value in which the rule will suddenly apply, so whether it's greater than this value here. And by default you can already see that some values are live previewing what the result will be. So if I want to change this in the box to 70, it'll also live preview and change it so we can see those values popping up. Now the next thing we can do is we can also change how we want that to be formatted. So there are a few default ones, and to be honest these are the most commonly used ones. So we've got green for good, yellow for intermediate, and red for bad. So there's kind of like a traffic light system. But there's also a few different options. We've got red text, red border, or you can just do a custom format as well. And then this will populate the typical format cell where we can customize what we want the cell to look like. Maybe we want the outside borders to look like this, and maybe we want the lines to be blue here and here, but we want it to be yellow here and here, or maybe we want to fill those in like that. And then the fill, we can do a fill effect, maybe something like that, or we can do a pattern style like this and choose our color. So let's just do a very simple one. We'll just do a light blue. We'll do a fill effect. We'll do something like this. Okay, maybe an orange fill effect so it stands out. Okay, so let's just go with this one. So as you can see, all the bottom ones have now got that fill effect applied. Now you can do the same rule. Let's just undo that. You can do the same rule with less than or between. So let's try between this time. So I want to highlight all the values that are between, say, let's say $30 and $45. So we're still selected our range. We're going to go highlight cells between, and then we're going to go, let's say, 30 and 45. Okay. So as you can see, now all of these cells are highlighted that certain way. So you can stack rules on top of rules. So let's do the highlight rule quickly. Between, let's just do 30 and 45 and highlight those as yellow. But anything under 34, we want to do a green fill. See, oops, sorry. So anything under 34, we want to do a green fill like that. And anything over, say, 60 or 40, we want to be a red fill. So you can stack different rules on top of each other, and anything not filled will be the exception to the rule, the only thing you haven't covered. Okay, so we've discussed these. We can also highlight cells that are equal to. So let's just say we want to highlight all cells that have a purchase price of $7.20. So we can select our range over here. We can go equals to $7.20. And this time we're going to do a custom format. We're going to fill this as a light blue. Okay, there we have it, all of those highlighted. So next we're going to highlight text, because we can do text rules as well as number rules. So let's just say all of our product codes, if it has the letter X in it, it's a X compatible software or inventory. So to quickly highlight that, because that's a little bit harder to filter, because it ends with the letter X. So what we can do is we can just do a conditional format. So let me just show you, if I wanted to filter all of these ones that end in an X, let me just put a filter on and I'll show you what I mean. It's a little bit harder to do it. We can go A to Z or Z to A, but that's the beginning letter. We can't sort or filter by the ending letter. So what we can do is we can select our range. We can go conditional format, highlight cells rule, text that contains, and the letter X. Now, no matter where it is in the word, it's going to highlight it. So another option we could do is U, and it's going to highlight all of these ones, or we could do B, and it's going to highlight all of these ones, plus these ones down the bottom. So I'm going to do X, I'm going to highlight it as red. Now, to solve that problem we had before about actually filtering those values, see how I've still got the filter on. What we can do now is, because conditional formatting has actually applied a format to those particular cells, we can now use this option in the filter, which is sort by color. So we can sort by this color here, which is the one we filtered. So now all of the X ones with X in it can be sorted at the top. And we can also do that with our other column over here. We can sort, or we can even filter it by it as well, and only show those ones. So now we can see the overlap between the ones that have the lower than $30 selling price and have the letter X in it as well. So it's a good way of filtering that data. But we can also work with dates as well. So fortunately we've got some dates in this column G over here, so I'm just going to clear the filter so we can see all the data. So what I want to do is I want to show all dates that have occurred before or before this date over here. So 14th of the 10th, 2015. So let me just do a quick check. Okay, it looks like everything is before that date. So I'm going to select the range as we did before, and we're going to go conditional formatting, highlight cells, a date occurring. Now you can do a few defaults. You can do yesterday, today, tomorrow, last 7 days, and this is based on the current date that you're running the report. So let's just quickly change this today so we can see that. That's how it's going to work. So because this data set's quite old, it's not going to show up if we do that. But let's just give an example. If we just change this to today, and then this one -1, and then drag that down, what's going to happen now is if we use that conditional formatting to show a date occurring yesterday, so now it's going to show you this one, or we can do a date occurring today, it's going to show you that date there, or tomorrow, we don't have any dates in there, the last 7 days, so it's going to highlight all of those, last week, so it's going to highlight these ones, this week it's going to highlight all of the 7 ones, next week we don't have any of those, last month I don't think we have any of those, this month, next month, etc. So it's a good way of filtering any values which have recently occurred in there as well. Now if you want to do anything more sophisticated, you can always go back to this more rules and type in your custom formula. Hidden features, if you actually select a range and go to more rules. So here's a few different things we can do. So there's format all cells based on their values. So that's going to highlight all cells in the range and apply a color scale. So for example, we could go 2-color scale from red to green, like so. And now it's going to highlight all the values with the lowest value being red or the highest value being green, so we can quickly hone in on them as a scale. We could also do the cells that contain values greater than, which is similar to what we did before, but there's a whole lot of more customizable rules. So for example, we've got not between, we've got not equal to, we've got greater than or equal to, which weren't available in that quick menu. We can also format only the top or bottom ranked values. So if we undo that formatting by pressing Control Z, let's select the range again, and this time we're going to go more rules, select only the top or bottom ranked values. So let's say I want to rank the top 5 values. And then we have to do our custom format over here. So I'm going to do a bright color so they stand out. So there's yellow, and here we go. So there's the bottom ones. That's the top 5 yellow ones. And then for the top bottom ones, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to choose bottom, and show bottom 5, and then rank this as a reddish color so they stand out as well, and then press OK. And there we have the bottom 5 values. Let's try that again. Something went wrong, so let's select all the range, conditional formatting, highlight rules, more rules, only the top or bottoms. This time we'll go bottom, and we'll go bottom 5, format this as red, and go OK. There we go. And there's our bottom ranges popping up. Okay, so let's have a look at the next rule, which is going to be only values that are above or below average. So we can go above, below, equal, above, or deviations above or below as well. So we can figure out what's our above average prices in here by doing this. Anything that's above average I'm going to put as a red, and then we can format those, and those are our above average prices over here. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to touch on is just using a custom formula. Put in more complicated formulas in here, or customize it to however you want. It really depends on the situation that you need to format. So just type in your formula there, format it as you want, click OK, and then you should be good to go. Okay, the next thing I want to teach you is where we've got duplicate data in here and we want to actually filter them out. So I've just expanded this grouped column over here, which we talked about in the beginner's course, how to do this. It's just a best practice way of hiding columns, so it's a lot easier to identify where a column is hidden. As you can see, the data that I've got in here is the customer names, so the person that each of these inventory were sold to. And what I want to do is I want to highlight wherever there's a duplicate customer. The reason is often you'll look through a data list, and one of the checks that you need to make as a data analyst is to make sure that the data in there isn't being duplicated, so they're not accidentally counting something twice. Now there's a few ways you could do it. One of them is a visual way, just to make sure that there's nothing standing out red. And how I would do this is I'd select this list, I would go Home, Conditional Format, Highlight Rules, and Duplicate Values over here. So as you can see, a lot of these values are duplicates. So let's press Enter. This is a good way of doing a visual check on your data set. So right now I can know that, I probably need to go through and sort through this list. And because I've got to these duplicate values, what I can do now is either delete out the duplicates, like so, and all of a sudden, wherever there's an instance, see I just deleted XYZ Corp, which was red before, but if I delete this, all of a sudden it's not formatted anymore, which means I've covered all of the duplicate values. So that's one way of doing it, is you can just delete all the values. Another way is you can select the data set, copy it, paste it over here somewhere. I'm going to paste it as values, and then I'm going to go Data, Remove Duplicates, which we talked about in the beginner's Excel course, and then press OK. And now we have the unique list of values of all of our custom base. So we can just double check that just to make sure. We can go Home, Conditional Formatting, Duplicate Values, and as you can see, there's no red values popping up. And from there on, I can do, say, a SUMIF of the selling price and the customer price. We can just do a quick SUMIF formula, which we talked about in the beginner's course as well. If you need help with that formula and other key formulas, it's just simply select the sum range. Select the sum range, the value you're looking up, and the summing column over here, and you'll see that I've locked the sum column, sorry, the lookup column, and unlocked the value column, and press enter. So now it's going to add up all the values for James's selling price and all of James's purchase price over here as well. And then we could do a quick formula. We could go equals that minus that, which is our company's profit from this particular customer. And then we could apply a new conditional formatting and then rank those, let's say, by greater than X value or between X value. So the next one I want to show you is just these top and bottom rules over here. So we did discuss a way of doing that using these formulas already. This is just another quicker, easier way of doing it. So Excel is giving you this preset defaults where you can do, say, top 10%. So let's select that. And because there's only less than 10 values, the top 10% is only going to be one value. So it's highlighted Richard as our best customer. Now we could also do the same thing and highlight our bottom rules over here. So we could do bottom 10%. So bottom 10%. Or we could do above average, highlight that as yellow, and so forth. See how it's overlapped? Because we've applied a new rule on top of an old one, the latest rule is going to apply on top of the older one if there is overlap. Okay, so while we're on the topic of overlapping rules, what I want to discuss managing and clearing rules. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at all the rules that we already have in place. So we can either select a certain range or we can just apply in general. So right now I only want to look at this range here. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go conditional formatting, and then down the bottom we've got our management. So we've got our clear rules, we've got our manage rules, or we could do a new rule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go manage rule, and there I can see all of the rules that I have in place for that particular range. As you can see, I've applied my bottom top 10%, and the above average range as well. Now in here you can either edit or delete rules, or even create a new one. So for example, if you want to delete the above average rule and get rid of that because it's now overlapping, what we can do is we can press delete like this, and suddenly if I click OK, the rule will disappear. Now we can also, let me just reverse that, we can also edit the range that we want it to apply to. So let's say, for example, we have either inserted new data down below, which we want to extend the rule to include, or within the data set, we don't want it to apply to a few certain cells. So if you want to extend it, what we can do is just increase the number of rows that it covers. So right now it stops at M11, and I want to extend this to M17. So I can change that to 17, and then any data we post below, paste that as values, it's going to apply to those cells as well. The next thing I want to show you is just clearing rules. So the thing about conditional formatting is they actually take up a lot of computer memory if you have it everywhere in your large Excel workbook. So it's generally recommended to minimize your usage of this unless it's all on a single sheet, in which case it probably doesn't really matter that much if it's a small workbook. But if you've got a 20 megabyte file with conditional formatting on every page, I generally recommend you avoid doing it to that extent. But if you do want to speed up your workbook a little bit, you could clear all your conditional formatting. So you could either clear it from a particular range. So I've selected that, and I'm going to go clear cells from selected cells, and that means it's only going to remove it from this range here. Or alternatively, what I could do is I could clear it from the entire sheet, and that's going to get rid of everything on here. So let's do that now, and as you can see, everything is now disappeared. The thing I'm going to show you is data bars and color scales, and I love using this on workbooks because it makes it a really easy way to read numbers and figures for people who are more visual readers rather than number people. Even for myself, it allows me to just very quickly zone in on something where the greatest numbers are or the smallest numbers or the problem areas are. I think normally our eyes can, humans are very visual people to begin with. So if you can do that, it makes your workbooks much more engaging. So a similar way to apply this is you select your data range. In this case, I'm going to choose the total value of stock. I'm going to go conditional formatting, and then I'm going to go data bars. And here it gives you a few different options. Okay, so you can just choose a particular color or a solid fill, depending on how you would like to represent it. In this case, I'm going to choose the green one because green means good, and the more value we have here, I want to represent as a good thing. Okay, and then if you filter this from largest to smallest, you'll see quite an engaging story. You can visually see how much bigger the top 5 items are than the next, and how that compares to the rest of it as well. I also want to show you what this would look like if some of these figures are negative as well. So let's do that negative like this and drag that down. And then sort this largest to smallest. So as you can see, the data bars are dynamic, which means that the green values are represented as, positive colors are represented as one color, and negative values are represented as another color. But it tells a very engaging story. Just like a chart, but it also gives you the numbers there as well, so it makes it really easy to read. Now, just like we did before, we can choose a few different options like that. So we could do all red, so it's red up and red down. We could do blue as positive but red as negative, yellow as positive, and so forth. Or we can just do solid fills as well, but you'll notice that in each instance the negative values are all red. So what if we don't want to show it as green for positive and red for negative? We can actually customize those as well. And that can be particularly important if, some of your numbers are hard to read. For example, you might have a green font on here, or for whatever reason, and it's hard to read these values. You can customize what colors you want in here. So if we just select that, and we've applied a certain rule already, say this green one, we can then go and edit that rule. We can go more rules, and we can customize a few different options here. So we can customize what color we want the fill to be and the border. So we can go no border and do like that, and then now it's going to change that. And we can also change the negative axis down here by going more rules, negative axis, and you can change that, say, to a yellow color, and then like that, and then you can do a custom however you like to fit your company colors or what you prefer to visualize. Now let's just clear that, and we can do this something similar to data bars, which is apply a color scale. This is another great way of telling a story with a data set. So let's just clear those rules from the selected cells and then apply color scales. So as you can see in the live preview, there's a few different options. You can do all the highest numbers ones as green, and it's a 3 color scale: green, yellow, red. So the moderate colors are yellow and the worst ones are red. Or we could do green, red, yellow, green, which is basically the opposite. So the highest values are red. You can just do a 2 color scale between red and white, or you could do it from green and white. So let's just choose this one here. So as we can see, the largest values are going to be represented as the darkest greens, and anything which aren't so favorable are just going to be white. So it kind of blends in, looks nice to the workbook, but very customizable. You can do it however you like. You can also manage it, so you can do custom colors as we did before. So we just go more rules, and you'll notice that it brings us back to this formatting page, which we could also access by going through here and doing the custom ones over here. Okay, so that's color scales. The third and final way of representing data in a range is through the icon sets, which is another great way of doing things. So let's just clear these rules and start again. So let's go highlights, icon sets. So as you can see over here in the live preview, depending on which one we do, so we can do arrows or shapes, it applies that to a certain range. So the top, say 10%, etc., will be green arrows. The middle, say 60 to 80%, will be yellow, and the bottom ones will be red. You can do the same with traffic light icons, flags, or indicators. So let's go with the tick icons as first. So as we can see straight away, it tells us in a very visual way, the top ones are represented with a tick mark, so they're the good ones, and the ones of concern are these red X's. So if you give this report to someone, it just makes it really easy to read it and tells them, what they have to look at first of all. If you want to change the rules in here, we can go edit rule, and we can change the thresholds that this applies to. So currently anything in the 67th percentile or above is now a tick mark. If we want to change that to 50 percentile, let's see what happens and press OK. So all of a sudden these things are now going to be tick marks as well. So anything over the 50th percentile is going to be a tick mark. You can also customize it. Let's edit that rule. You can change what icon set you want from here. So you could do a star there if the value is greater than this. You could do a cross here if it's less than that, and a really bad cross if it's less than, say, 0 or 15%. So let's see what that looks like now. So the absolute worst ones are these ones, the moderately bad ones are these ones, and the best ones are the ones with the gold star. So it's highly customizable. Do whatever you like according to your preferences. Okay, the last thing that I want to show you is a feature called Sparklines. Now, this is a little bit different to conditional formatting, and it's in a different area altogether. But the end result is something a little bit similar. It depends on how you want to use it. So first of all, where it is over here in the insert, and it's over here, Sparklines. So this is a relatively new feature in Excel. The older versions don't have this. But it's basically a way of putting a very mini chart into a singular cell. So instead of actually having a whole chart over here, which, you don't want to take up all that space and such, what you can do is just allocate a single cell to show the trend in data over a period. So here we have a data log of, let's say, profit of one particular entity. So I've just given random numbers between -10 and 100, spanning over a period of time. And I want to see how that visually looks without creating a chart. So what I can do is select all of these. Well, first of all, let's select one range. Select all the data that we want to put as a sparkline. And then what we go is insert sparkline. So we can choose line, column, win or loss. I'm going to choose line. And then it's going to ask you to choose the data you want. So it's pre-populated that based on what we've selected in the range. And we can also choose where we want it to be placed. So I'm going to select this cell here. And then notice how this is locked. So I'm going to unlock this because I want to be able to drag this down. And press enter. And as you can see, it's populated the trend. So there's no Y or X axis telling you the values or time. But what it does give you is an indication of trend. So if something is very increasing over time, so let's say equals that +1, you'll notice how it's just reset because I put random values. You'll see that it gives you a trend, right? So it's a flat increase over time. So if I drag this down, you can see that the trend is applied to the next range of data over here. So if we can do another example where it's minus or times 1/2. Let's see, times, we'll go that times 1/2 and see what that looks like. So just dragging that across. So you can see that it's going to be a declining exponential. We could also do this times itself, drag that across, see what that looks like. Oh, something's gone wrong. Got an error. So just that times 5. And as you can see, it's a quite steep exponential incline over time. So it's basically just a way of representing data in a different way over time. So another option we could do is, instead of the sparklines, maybe we want to do a column. So instead we're going to choose the data range here. And as you can see, now we've got a column chart over here. You'll notice that when I drag it down, it changes as well. Or alternatively, we could do the last option, which is a win and loss. select a data range here. So as you can see, the negative values are represented as a red and the positive values are represented as a blue value. Thing for this chapter in representing a data series in a visual format using either conditional formatting, which we use a lot, or Sparklines, which I don't use as much, but some people like it, so it's up to them. But really powerful tools. I hope you've learned a lot. And in the next lesson, we will be talking about working with a worksheet.